Countless civilizations had fallen before them, their names remembered only in whispers. No one challenged the Veer. No one dared, until humanity. Captain Elias Ward stood among the victors in the great hall of the Galactic Tribunal, still wearing the scars of battle on his uniform. The chamber stretched wide, a circle of stone and steel where hundreds of species had gathered to mark the end of tyranny. Above them, banners of freedom unfurled, but the atmosphere was uneasy. The galaxy had learned to cheer in public and doubt in private, and many still wondered if humanity's victory was simply the replacing of one tyrant with another. Elias himself did not care for the ceremony. He had fought through 7 campaigns, had seen comrades turn to ash, and had dragged himself through battlefields littered with bones. Victory was hollow when weighed against the cost. Yet here he was, elevated as a hero. The alien delegates began their tributes. Some offered technology scavenged from the ruins of the Veer. Others presented mineral-rich planets or fleets of surrendered warships. All of it felt alien, distant, unreal. Elias stood, accepted their gestures with a polite nod, and wished only to be dismissed. But then came a gift that stopped the hall in silence. A Veer noble, stripped of much of his former power, but still arrogant in posture, strode forward with a sneer curling his lips. Behind him walked a chained figure, a tall alien woman, shoulders proud even under restraint, her skin a dark shade marked with ceremonial scars, her silver eyes burning like molten metal. "She was once a commander of our fleets," the noble declared, his voice carrying across the hall. "Now she is broken, captured, and offered as tribute, a fitting reward for a conqueror such as you." Gasps echoed through the chamber. Some species turned their faces away, uncomfortable yet unwilling to intervene. To the galaxy, such offerings were not unheard of. Slaves had been given as gifts for millennia. But to present one to a human, who had fought under banners of freedom, was a bold insult, or perhaps a test. Elias's jaw tightened. He looked at the woman, not the noble. Her wrists bore heavy shackles, yet she stood defiantly, refusing to bow her head. She was proud still, unbroken in spirit. There was no fear in her gaze, only contempt, for her captor, for her chains, and perhaps for him. The tribunal applauded uneasily, their voices a hollow echo. To them, Elias was supposed to accept. To them this was politics, tradition, spectacle. But to him it was poison. He had not bled across worlds, had not buried friends beneath alien skies, just to uphold the Dominion's legacy of slavery. He did not move at first, his silence heavy. The noble smirked, misreading it as approval. "Do you see, human?" "The noble said, taunting. "This is the galaxy's way. Strength is rewarded and the weaker bound. She is yours, to command, to use, to dispose of. Will you not take what is rightfully earned?" Elias finally spoke, his voice low but resonant, carrying an edge that cut through the hall. "I fought to end this, not to become it." The noble faltered, confused. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. Elias stepped forward, his eyes never leaving the alien woman's silver gaze. She did not flinch. For a heartbeat, soldier and captive measured each other, neither yielding. Elias then turned to the noble, his voice louder this time, sharp with conviction. "If the galaxy thinks humanity came here to wear crowns of chains, then you've learned nothing. We didn't fight for power. We fought for freedom, and we'll never accept anything less." The hall fell silent. No applause followed this time, only the weight of his words settling like iron on every listener's shoulders. And in that silence, Elias saw the faintest flicker in the woman's eyes. Not gratitude, no, she was far too proud for that, but something else, a recognition, a spark. In that moment, he understood 2 things clearly. First, this alien woman was no slave, no prize, no reward. She was a soldier who had lost everything, but whose spirit had not been broken. And second, If humanity was to have a future in the stars, it would not be built on chains. Others might have expected her to strike at him the moment her chains loosened, to claw and bite and exact vengeance for the humiliation forced upon her. But Ceres, he learned her name only later, did not act with wild fury. She carried herself with the same silent defiance she had worn in the tribunal chamber, as if every link of iron had been beneath her notice. In the captain's quarters, Elias placed the key into the locks himself. The metal restraints clattered to the floor, their sound sharp against the silence. For the first time in years, Ceres's wrists were bare. Her skin was scarred where the shackles had rubbed, deep grooves like old battle wounds. She rubbed at them absent-mindedly, but did not look away from Elias. Her eyes were sharp, suspicious, ready to dissect the meaning behind every gesture. "You're free," Elias said simply, standing back. The words hung between them, alien in their weight. Ceres tilted her head as if she had misheard. Freedom was a concept she had not seen in her people's lifetimes. The Dominion had long ago crushed it out of them. Freedom was a word used in speeches, propaganda, and rebellion, never in truth. Why? Her voice was raw, shaped by an accent foreign to his ears. She spoke in broken galactic common, piecing together fragments of language she had likely used only in command. "Why release? Am I not reward?" Elias shook his head, his expression grim. "I don't take people as prizes. You want to leave? The door is open." He motioned to the exit. The ship was docked, the galaxy beyond accessible. If she chose, she could vanish into the chaos of the new peace. But Ceres didn't move. Her instincts screamed at her to distrust. The Dominion had taught her well that freedom was always a trick, always the bait for a sharper hook. Yet here was this human, this victor of war, who offered her a choice. Not command, not compulsion, choice. Her silver eyes narrowed. "You mock me. No one frees Ver." "I just did." For the first time, doubt flickered across her face. She could not reconcile what she saw with what she believed. Slowly, cautiously, she tested him. "If I leave, you not hunt?" "Won't stop you," Elias replied. His voice was steady, almost weary, as if he had spoken these truths 1,000 times before in his heart. "But if you stay, it's your decision." There was a long silence. The weight of it pressed heavily on them both. At last, Ceres straightened, her chin rising as it had in the tribunal chamber. "I stay. Watch you." It was not surrender. It was a challenge, a declaration of intent. She would not flee, not until she understood this human who defied the galaxy's rules. Days passed. Elias went about his duties, giving her space, never forcing her hand. Ceres observed him constantly. She watched as he trained his crew, shared meals with them, spoke not as a lord to servants, but as a leader to comrades. He did not shout commands with cruelty. He listened, laughed, and even admitted mistakes. The galaxy had called humans ruthless. Ceres began to see a contradiction. They were ruthless in battle, yes, but there was mercy in them too, a kind of stubborn compassion that alien empires could not comprehend. When Elias brought her food one evening, setting it gently before her, she narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "No poison," he said dryly, catching her look. Her lips twitched, the ghost of something that might one day become a smile. "Strange human," she muttered in her own tongue, though he did not understand the words. But he heard the tone, and for the first time, he allowed himself a quiet chuckle. In the weeks that followed, Ceres began to speak more. She revealed her name, though cautiously, as if sharing it gave him some measure of power over her. She spoke of the stars she had once commanded, of fleets lost and battles fought. She confessed, in fragments, that she had expected to die rather than be captured. Ceres, restless in her strange new half-freedom, prowled the ship like a predator in unfamiliar territory. She observed how Elias treated his crew. He did not dominate them as their commanders did, nor punish every failure with pain. He corrected mistakes with patience, offered praise when earned, and bore blame alongside them when things went wrong. One evening, curiosity overcame her restraint. Why do they follow you? No chains, no fear. Yet they obey. Elias glanced up from the datapad in his hand, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Because they trust me. Trust, she repeated, testing the word. In her tongue, the closest equivalent was submission through obligation. Yet this was different. He spoke of it as strength, not weakness. They trust because you are stronger? Not stronger, just willing to stand with them, he replied. His eyes lifted to meet hers. That's the difference. She scoffed at the simplicity, but the seed had already been planted. Over time, the conversations grew longer. Ceres found herself recounting her own history, though the words came haltingly, unwillingly, as if dragging shards of glass from old wounds. She spoke of battles where she had commanded fleets of hundreds, of victories that had turned to ash. When the Dominion demanded tribute of slaves from the conquered, she had obeyed because disobedience meant execution, not only for her but for her bloodline. You regret it, Elias said one night, not as an accusation but as a statement of fact. Her silver eyes hardened. Regret is useless. Regret does not unchain the dead. No, Elias agreed softly, but it can unchain the living. She had no answer for that. What unsettled her most was not his words but his laughter. Human laughter was loud, unrestrained, almost careless. Elias laughed often, even after war, even in the quiet of exhaustion. It was not the cruel laughter of a Dominion noble, but something else entirely, an echo of resilience, a refusal to let darkness devour him. One evening she caught herself listening for it, and that realization terrified her. The bond between them grew not with grand gestures, but with small, ordinary moments. Ceres learned to spar with human soldiers, discovering that their unpredictability made them dangerous, even when weaker. She corrected Elias's strategies during a tactical simulation, and he, shockingly, thanked her for it. No commander in the Dominion had ever thanked her. In return, Elias asked about her scars. She told him, with dry bitterness, that each mark was proof of her survival, branding from her initiation as a commander, lashes from superiors she had displeased, cuts from battles where she had refused to yield. She expected him to recoil or pity her. Instead, he traced the air above one scar, not touching but acknowledging it. They're not marks of shame, he said. They're proof they couldn't break you. For a long time after, she sat in silence, unable to speak. The cold turning point came one night when Ceres finally confessed the truth of her gift. Her voice was low, her words thick with shame. When they gave me to you, it was not honor. It was trap. They expected me to kill you, to strike when you trusted. Elias did not flinch. He leaned back in his chair, studying her with calm eyes. And why didn't you? Her throat tightened. She wanted to snarl that she still might. She wanted to claim vengeance burned hotter than this strange, disarming bond. But the words caught in her chest, strangled by something else entirely. Finally, she whispered, "Because you gave me back myself." The admission stunned her as much as it did him. For the first time since captivity, Ceres felt tears sting. Her eyes, not of weakness, but of release. She clenched her fists, furious at her own vulnerability. Elias didn't speak immediately. Instead, he reached across the table, his hand covering hers. Not with force, not to trap, but to steady, to anchor. Ceres froze. She could have pulled away. Every instinct screamed to do so. Yet she did not. For once she allowed the contact to remain, her hand trembling beneath his. It was not ownership. It was not command. It was something else entirely. By now Ceres was no longer the chained alien handed to Elias as a reward. She walked freely through his ship, her head held high, her silver eyes flashing with the pride of a warrior. She trained with his crew, shared meals at his table, even sparred with Elias himself in the training bay. What shocked the galaxy most was that she chose to remain. Every other species expected her to either escape or strike him down. Instead, she stayed, and Elias allowed it, even welcomed it. To many, it was scandal. To others, blasphemy. How could a human, victor of war, symbol of Earth's defiance, stand side by side with a former enemy commander as though she were his equal? The answer came in fire when the Galactic Tribunal summoned them. The tribunal chamber was a massive amphitheater where hundreds of delegates sat in a circle beneath the banners of their worlds. It was here that peace was supposed to be forged, fragile as glass, after centuries of blood. Elias stood before them, wearing his uniform not as a decoration but as a statement. He was a soldier first, not a politician. Beside him stood Ceres. No chains, no guards. She had chosen to walk with him into the heart of the galaxy's scrutiny, her every step daring them to condemn her. The whispers began immediately. Some called her traitor, others spy. Some simply stared, unable to comprehend the sight of her hand brushing against his as they ascended the dais. Finally, a voice cut through the uproar. A Seraph diplomat, tall and serpentine, rose with a hiss. His scales shimmered with contempt as he addressed Elias. You dishonor this tribunal, human. You were given a slave, our tradition, our way of recognizing strength. Yet you flaunt her as if she is your equal. Do you mock us? Is this humanity's idea of honor? The chamber buzzed with agreement. Dozens of species nodded, muttered, sneered. The idea that chains could be cast aside, that a gift of power could be refused, was unthinkable to them. Elias did not answer at once. He let the murmur build, let the weight of their scorn hang heavy. Then he stepped forward, his voice calm but ironclad. You call it a gift. I call it an insult. The chamber quieted, startled by the venom in his tone. Elias's gaze swept the room, his eyes hard. I bled for this war. I watched friends die in battles your people wouldn't dare fight. Humanity didn't rise to. Victory to become another empire of chains. We didn't fight to replace one tyrant with another. We fought so no one would stand above us in shackles. A chorus of disapproval erupted. The Seraph diplomat slammed his tail against the floor, demanding silence. You speak as though your ideals outweigh centuries of galactic order. Strength is rule. Chains are law. It has always been so. Elias's voice rose like thunder. Then it ends with us. The hall fell silent again. Elias reached to his side and, to the gasps of the assembly, took Ceres's hand. Not as a master would clutch a leash, but as a man choosing to stand beside another as equal. Her silver eyes widened for the briefest moment, then steadied, fierce and proud, as she tightened her grip on his. My reward was a slave, Elias declared, his words ringing through the chamber. My choice is love. The tribunal exploded into chaos. Some shouted in fury, others in disbelief. A few sat frozen, staring with something like awe. Never in their lifetimes had such words been spoken in this place. Ceres's heart pounded in her chest. She had stood on battlefields, commanded fleets, faced execution without flinching, but this declaration, made before the eyes of the galaxy, struck deeper than any blade. He had chosen her, not as a possession, not as a prize, but as partner, as equal, as beloved. The Seraph diplomat hissed in outrage. You would defy the tribunal. For her! Elias did not hesitate. "I would defy the galaxy for her." Gasps rippled through the hall. Even Ceres turned to look at him, her defiance shaken by the raw certainty in his voice. The tribunal never forgot that day. For some, Elias Ward's declaration was an outrage, a mockery of ancient custom. For others, it was a spark, something dangerous and new, a possibility the galaxy had never dared to imagine. But for Ceres, it was the beginning of a life she had never thought possible. In the days following the confrontation, their ship became the center of scandal and whispers. Some called Elias a fool, blinded by an enemy's beauty. Others labeled Ceres a traitor, a symbol of dishonor to the Dominion's shattered pride. But no accusation, no rumor, could erase the truth that now bound them together. They had chosen each other, in a galaxy where choice was rare and freedom rarer still. Ceres, once a commander of chains, now found herself walking a path entirely her own. No Dominion overseer dictated her steps. No tribunal laws defined her role. When she walked beside Elias, it was not as a prisoner or as a subordinate, but as a partner. And yet the change did not come without fear. In quiet moments, when the hum of the ship lulled her into thought, Ceres questioned everything. Could she ever truly belong among humans? Could Elias bear the weight of the hatred their union stirred? Could two souls from opposite sides of war carve out peace when the galaxy itself resisted it? Elias seemed unconcerned by the doubts. He moved forward with the same stubborn resolve that had carried humanity through impossible wars. When Ceres voiced her fears, he would only smile with that infuriating human calm and say, "Then we'll prove them wrong." Their marriage was simple. No grand hall, no tribunal banners, no noble witnesses. Instead, the ceremony took place on the observation deck of Elias's ship, with only his crew and a handful of allies present. Stars stretched endlessly outside the glass, a silent choir to witness their vows. Ceres stood tall in garments gifted by the crew, simple but unchained, unmarked by Dominion scars. Elias wore no medals, only his plain uniform. They faced each other, no scripts or traditions to dictate the words. "We choose each other," Elias said, his voice steady, carrying the weight of a soldier's oath. "No one else chooses for—" Ceres hesitated. Words had always been weapons in her world, but never promises. Finally she spoke, her voice trembling yet fierce. "I was given in chains. I remain by choice. That is my vow." When their hands clasped, the crew erupted in cheers. For Ceres, it was not just a union. It was a reclamation. She was no longer the Dominion's commander, no longer the tribunal's gift, no longer the galaxy's slave. She was Ceres Ward, wife, partner, equal. News of the marriage spread faster than any fleet. Some worlds cursed humanity's arrogance, claiming humans had spat on tradition. Others whispered with awe, questioning whether the chains that bound them might also be broken one day. Among Ceres's people, scattered enslaved remnants of a once proud race, the news struck like lightning. For centuries they had known only despair. The Dominion had told them they were born to serve, that resistance was futile. But now, across broken colonies and hidden camps, her people spoke her name with reverence. "If even one of us can rise," they whispered, "perhaps we all can." For Elias the marriage was more than love. It was a message. Humanity had not come to the stars to repeat the mistakes of others. They had come to break cycles, to challenge the galaxy itself. In choosing Ceres, he had shown every watching eye that Earth's strength did not lie in chains, but in defiance, and in the radical, dangerous belief that freedom was for all. Years later, when historians tried to explain the turning point of the post-Dominion era, many pointed not to battles or treaties, but to the quiet union aboard a human ship. They wrote that a single human captain and a former alien commander had redefined what victory meant. Not conquest, not domination, but love. And for Ceres, the woman once branded in scars and bound in iron, The truth was even simpler. Each morning, when she awoke beside Elias, she was reminded of the promise they had spoken beneath the stars. No one else chooses for us. It was a vow that would echo across generations, reshaping the galaxy one bond at a time.